been probing the question of communication. Scarcely surprising one should be thinking about it given the current quality of our conversations, both in our digital and bodily forms. I stumbled on this beautiful book, Silence of God Meditations on Prayer by James B. Cars, and like all of his other works, incredibly written. And in one of the chapters, he dwells into the nature of silence in communication. Interestingly, he talks about two types: the silence of obedience and the silence of expectation in speech. Now, the silence of obedience entails all those times wherein we become listeners and assign the privilege of our speech to winners of an office. Could be like a president or anybody holding a title. They are referred to as imperative speakers. For example, when the Pope addresses the Mass, everyone falls into silence and chooses not to speak out of obedience to the position or the title. Not only does this silence bring our speech to an end, but we are equally aware of our silence in those situations. The silence of expectation, on the other hand, it makes speech possible. In these situations, people that do listen have given up a claim to superiority, they've emptied any claim to an office or title, but embraced equal and shared humanity. This is the form of silence that gives us a voice to speak. Unless we have someone to speak to, we cannot speak. Unless someone is listening, there is no one to whom we can speak. Imagine if people around us stopped listening. We will indeed have nothing to say because we will only be talking to ourselves. Unless someone offers us the silence in their form of listening, we cannot speak. Plus, if our speech does not transform to listening, it's merely words that have been repeated. But if one listens in openness, the other will have a voice to say things they have never said before. I'm certain we are all familiar with that one friend or a family member, even a stranger at times, who provided that silence in the form of their listening, where you could pour your heart out. This enables opening of our hearts both for the speaker and the listener. Not to discover depths, but instead to kind of create or develop new depths in ourselves. Like the time when you read a book or the words someone said that touched you, even the words that I'm saying now could be opening up your heart to something new. The speech in the expectant mode is not contradictory but reciprocal. But what we are witnessing largely in our societies on the digital media represents the culture of imperative speakers, where one speaks to make another silent, or one joins a group, a belief, a party to make the other group silent. End of the day, we are not communicating at all when we refuse to listen. And most people refuse to listen as they disagree with what is being said. Now, what I'm saying here is not to express disagreement, but the tools we are using to deal with disagreements are that of judgment, hatred, violence, even to cancel people out. These are irrational ways of dealing with each other, and I'm certain most of us have faced the consequences of judgment, hatred, even violence, and precisely one of the reasons many of us prefer the company of animals or children, infants, as they don't employ such tools in their form of communication. We are merely masking each other's hearts and voices when we engage with these tools. And these tools are typically employed when a new idea, new discovery, new theories, others' beliefs, or perspectives contradict with our own beliefs. Now, when our beliefs or identities are questioned, it creates great discomfort and disturbance in our brains. And we tend to force our brains back to equilibrium by utilizing these tools. We can't go further into this inquiry without talking about belief. Now, the literal definition of belief is a fact or a statement accepted as maintaining an existence and held to be true. Consequently, the content of the belief can vary from scientific, religious, to the spiritual, nationalism, and so on. Now, examine the structure of belief and question whether we need to retain any of these beliefs at all in my upcoming book. But here, I will consider a more straightforward example of a scientific belief to illustrate what I'm trying to say about beliefs, as the other forms of belief are rather abstract to discuss here. So let's look at our scientific endeavors and let's consider the example of our Newtonian science, which was tested, verified, and was held to be true. And suddenly it came into question with theories of relativity and quantum mechanics. And it is not about something suddenly becoming false, rather, an indication that as humans inquire into new domains, the older theories become unclear and need further investigation. Now, if all the scientists stuck to their theories as true, implying that they do not change, we would not allow for new discoveries we see in the world today. But if one is going to be married to their beliefs, then it is a self-imposed limitation. Merely the belief that a particular theory or idea communicates true knowledge of reality at all times. Like those times when an earth-bound observer felt Earth to be unmoving, solid and stable, was then confronted with the heliocentric model. It might have caused considerable discomfort if one believed in the geocentric model, and less discomfort for a person who simply received this new information with curiosity and saw it as progressive science, and more importantly, he saw it as an impersonal fact. After all, the essential characteristic of the scientific method is the continual probing, criticizing, testing of every feature of every theory, no matter how fundamental that theory may seem to be. In essence, we cannot go beyond existing limitations and changes to confront new facts if we consider everything set in stone. The question is also really not about true or false, enough evidence, no evidence, or stupid claims, but the real question is whether we can employ the tools of curious engagement and openness when confronted with contradictions. Not turn our focus and energy just to save our beliefs or resort to labeling others as wrong. This behavior also steers us to treat individual society largely as something fixed and limited, which is of no use if we want or hope to see our society evolve from what it is right now. Additionally, if we go into the more difficult areas of religious beliefs or even violent extremist beliefs, it all comes down to people holding these beliefs to be true. Now, individuals invest a great deal of their identity in these beliefs. For some of them, it may define who they are. It is also the ground on which human beings have decided to stand. And if that ground is questioned, their whole world seems to collapse, creating enormous discomfort. Now, regardless of the belief, a scientific or an irrational one, say the QAnon beliefs, in both scenarios, individuals believe it to be true, and their belief is informing their actions in the world, even if it is a confused one. So, what we can offer here, and what I'm saying, is the tool of compassion to perceive what is driving ourselves or other individuals to hold on to the beliefs in the first place. Plus, how, as a society, via our communities, education systems, we can equip each other to see the dangers of a belief system. Bringing judgment or hatred in conversations are counterproductive. In fact, it fuels people to hold on to their beliefs if they are attacked. So, when we stay open in the silence by way of our listening, neither party feels the need to defend, secure, or protect themselves or their beliefs. We can all still go back home with our beliefs. I heard someone mention this in a talk recently. If we informed a devout believer in prayer mid-air that the aircraft he was on is going to be unmanned to test the power of prayer, most certainly he will insist to bring the pilot back. So there is invariably room for us to converse and listen to each other to test the validity and limitations of our beliefs at all times. This picture in slow motion enters my mind whenever I see myself or anyone else bringing in judgment and hatred into a conversation. If only at that moment we were to suspend or hold back our judgments, it is a superhero move indeed, and decide to apply the intelligent tools of curious engagement, openness, compassion to receive others fully, we could generate a positive impact into each of our lives. Hopefully, we can make room in our hearts to open up and understand the world better and to secure a more promising future, not only for us humans, but all the residents on this planet. I'm appending to Rumi's words here. Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, right views or wrong views, opinions or belief, there is a field, and I'll meet you there.